She lost it. She has really lost it this time, and I don't mean that in the fun little internet way where somebody tweets something dumb, and we all move on by tomorrow. I mean Claressa Shields, the woman who has spent the last year telling anybody who will listen that she is the greatest boxer of all time, is now sitting in the middle of a training camp for a State Farm Arena main event on August 15th against Kaye Scott. And instead of looking like a champion locking in, she is posting AI-generated pregnancy photos of herself, feuding with an Atlanta radio host named Mz Shyneka, and giving Ariel Helwani interviews where she says out loud, on camera, that she does not know a single Remy Ma song. That last part matters more than anybody is telling you, because everybody watching this story is watching the wrong layer of it. You think this is about a boxer being cringe on the internet. It is not. This is about a woman heading into the biggest crossover moment of her career, in a city that already has one foot out the door on her, dating a man whose legal wife is quietly running laps around both of them in the culture, and doing it all while her own team apparently cannot get her off the phone long enough to hit pads. When we get to the Atlanta section, and I promise you we are getting there, because the Mz Shyneka situation is not a beef, it is a warning shot from an entire city, you're going to understand why every single one of these pregnancy posts, every one of these radio blow-ups, every one of these I don't know her songs moments is not random. It is a pattern. And the pattern says this fight camp is being sabotaged from the inside by the fighter herself. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Now let me set the table for you, because I want everybody watching to be on the same page before we start unpacking the evidence, and there's a lot of evidence. Claressa Shields is a two-time Olympic gold medalist, undisputed middleweight world champion, and by any objective boxing measurement, one of the greatest women to ever put on gloves. That is not up for debate. What is up for debate, and what has become the entire story of her 2026, is whether she has any idea what to do with the platform that boxing gave her. Because right now, in August of 2026, with her State Farm Arena fight against Kaye Scott just days away, the conversation around Claressa Shields has nothing to do with boxing. It has to do with Papoose. It has to do with Remy Ma. It has to do with AI pregnancy photos she posted on August 4th and 5th that immediately went viral for all the wrong reasons. It has to do with an Atlanta radio host she went scorched earth on after a completely reasonable question was asked. And it has to do with a national interview on the Ariel Helwani show where she told the world she does not know Remy Ma's music, a statement that made her look, and I am going to be honest here, dumber than anybody in that conversation needed her to look. The stakes are not small. Personally, she is trying to sell out an arena in a city she does not live in a culture that respects one thing above all others, which is authenticity. And she is walking into that city posting fake belly pictures generated by a Facebook magic swap puzzle game. Culturally, she is dating a man who is legally still married to one of the most respected female MCs in New York history, and every move she makes is being read through that lens whether she likes it or not. Financially, and this is the part nobody wants to say out loud, she is one bad news cycle away from sponsors quietly ghosting her right before the biggest gate of her career. Reputation-wise, she is turning herself from greatest women's boxer alive into the girl who posts AI baby bumps, and that is a switch you do not get to flip back once it flips. So the question that this entire video is going to answer is simple. Is Claressa Shields cracking under pressure? Is she chasing clout on purpose because she knows the fight itself is not moving the needle? Or is she, and this is what I actually believe, completely losing grip on the difference between attention and respect? Because those are two different currencies, and she is spending one thinking she is earning the other. Let me walk you through what is actually on the timeline, because the surface evidence alone is damning, and I want to be very specific about what has been documented and when. On August 4th, 2026, Claressa Shields posted AI-generated images of herself with a pregnant belly, referencing what she called these Facebook games crazy, through what has been reported as a magic swap puzzle game filter. The images went everywhere within hours. The problem is not that she used a filter. The problem is that the woman who has spent months publicly telling interviewers she wanted to be pregnant by 30, then said 100% she would have a baby in 2026, then quietly moved that timeline to 2027 in her more recent Ariel Helwani appearance, is now generating fake belly photos of herself instead of, actually being pregnant. That is not a filter joke. That is a tell. Every serious pregnancy announcement I have ever seen in my life follows the same pattern. The ultrasound gets posted, the caption is short, the comment section fills up, and life moves on. When somebody instead posts a series of AI images of themselves with a belly they do not actually have, that is not a person who is close to being pregnant. That is a person cosplaying being pregnant, and the internet clocked it immediately. That is piece of evidence number 1, and it is verifiable. The posts exist, the reactions exist, the timestamps exist. Piece of evidence number 2 is the Ariel Helwani appearance itself, where Shields did a freestyle, gave props to several female rappers she said she respected, and then, when Helwani asked her directly if she liked Remy Ma, paused, shook her head, and said she did not know many of Remy Ma's songs, so she could not really say. Now think about this for a second. You are dating a man whose entire public identity for the last 2 decades has been Remy Ma's husband. That is not an insult, that is just the mathematical reality of Papoose's public profile. And you go on the biggest combat sports podcast in the world and tell the host you do not know his wife's music. You do not know Conceited. You do not know Lean Back, which she was on. You do not know All the Way Up, which is a plaque on the wall in every hip-hop museum on earth. You are telling on yourself. You are telling the audience you either do not care enough about the culture you are marrying into to have done the homework, or you do care and you are pretending not to as some kind of shot, which is somehow worse, because it means you think this is a game you can win. It is not a game you can win. Remy Ma has been on records with Fat Joe and Jadakiss on Drink Champs. Remy Ma has a podcast. Remy Ma was on Angie Martinez during the New York Knicks playoff run this year. You were on a treadmill in Atlanta arguing with a morning radio host. Those are not the same tier of career, and pretending they are is the exact thing that makes this whole moment feel so off. Piece of evidence number 3 is the Mz Shyneka situation, and I want to be careful and specific here because Atlanta is watching this one closely. Shields appeared on the Street's morning takeover with Young Jock, Mz Shyneka, and Shotty for what was supposed to be a promotional interview for the August 15th fight. Mz Shyneka asked a completely fair question. The reported framing was essentially how much longer Shields was willing to be in her current relationship situation, given how it looks publicly. That is a question any host in America would have asked. Instead of answering it like an adult, Shields went on to post follow-up videos calling Mz Shyneka out by name, at one point referring to her as Ms. Piggy in what read very clearly as body shaming, telling her to say it to her face next time, and doubling down on the criticism across multiple platforms. Baller Alert covered it. The Breakfast Club posted the follow-up. Every hip-hop blog you can name ran with the clips. And Atlanta, the city where this fight is taking place in less than 2 weeks, is not happy. The comment sections are full of people saying they live in Atlanta, they were considering going to the fight, and they are not buying tickets now because Mz Shyneka is a beloved figure in that community and Shields just tried to run over her on air. Piece of evidence number 4, and this one nobody is stitching together with the rest, is the pattern of Shields herself referring to Papoose in her own videos as the husband and my hubby. Not my man, not my partner, not my boyfriend. The husband. The man is legally still married to Remy Ma, a fact that has been confirmed and reconfirmed in reporting from Complex, Yahoo Entertainment, and multiple hip-hop outlets throughout 2025 and into 2026. With Papoose himself saying he has requested divorce numerous times, but Remy allegedly slowing the process, and Remy on her side reportedly saying Papoose is the actual holdup because he is asking for half. Whichever version you believe, the legal status is the same. They are married. And Shields, on her own timeline, is calling him her husband. That is not confidence. That is manifestation cosplay. And the internet, which does not miss anything, sees it exactly for what it is. So when you line up the AI belly, the Helwani slip, the Mz Shyneka blow-up, and the hubby language, 4 separate pieces of evidence, all from the last few weeks, all verifiable, all in the public record, you do not get a champion locking in for a title defense. You get somebody unraveling in slow motion in front of a camera she cannot put down. And that is just the surface. Wait until we get into what the culture is actually saying behind the scenes. And oh, do I have more for you? Because I want everybody who came here expecting the standard boxer beefs with rapper video to buckle in right now, because the next layer of this is where the story stops being funny and starts being embarrassing on a career level. The stans who keep sliding into every comment section defending Shields as some kind of misunderstood queen are really not going to like what we are about to get into, because the reactions I am about to walk you through are not coming from her ops. They are coming from the culture she is trying to marry into. And when the culture starts speaking, it does not send a text. It sends a signal. So if you thought the AI pregnancy pictures were the worst of it, I need you to understand, that was the appetizer. Wait until you hear what actual New York hip-hop is doing while Shields is out here in Atlanta yelling at radio hosts. Let's start with the most damaging cultural signal, because it is not what Remy Ma has said. It is what Remy Ma has not had to say. Remy has, by all available reporting, kept her public commentary on the Shields Papoose situation minimal and measured. She has not gone on a 9-video rampage. She has not posted AI photos of anybody. She has not called anybody Miss Piggy on a morning show. She has, according to reporting, appeared alongside Fat Joe, Jadakiss, and other legacy New York MCs, done Angie Martinez sit-downs, been part of the Knicks' playoff cultural moment in New York City, and quietly let the contrast do the work. That is a masterclass in what happens when you have already won. The person who has won does not need to argue. The person who is losing cannot stop arguing. And every single day that Shields wakes up and posts another video explaining her relationship for the 4th time, Remy wakes up and does absolutely nothing and gains ground. That is cultural evidence piece number 1, and it is devastating because it is invisible until you point it out. Cultural evidence piece number 2 is the way New York veterans have positioned themselves. When you look at who has publicly rocked with Remy in the last year, Fat Joe, Jadakiss, Memphis Bleak on his podcast, Angie Martinez on her platform, and Ori on Drink Champs, Busta Rhymes cheering her on. You are looking at the actual pillars of New York hip-hop. Now go look at the same list for Papoose in 2026 and tell me what you find. It is thin. Really thin. Busta Rhymes, to his credit, has stayed cordial with both, which is the veteran move. But everybody else? The culture has picked a side, and it did not pick the side Claressa is on. That is not gossip. That is a public-facing map of who is showing up where, and it is one of the loudest silences in hip-hop right now. When the culture picks a side without saying a word, that is the side that has already won. Cultural evidence piece number 3 is the Ariel Helwani segment, because I want to come back to it and pull out something everybody missed the first time. When Helwani asked Shields about Remy Ma, and she said she did not know her songs, that clip did not just embarrass her, it did something worse. It got picked up by Yahoo Entertainment, Hot New Hip Hop, and every hip-hop aggregator on the internet within hours, and every one of those articles ran the same subtext. This is the woman dating Remy Ma's husband, and she does not know Remy Ma's music. That is the exact framing that turns a personal choice into a cultural indictment. Because now the story is not boxer dates rapper. The story is boxer dates rapper, disrespects rapper's wife, does not even know the wife's catalog. That is a story hip-hop remembers. Hip-hop has a long memory for that specific kind of disrespect, and I do not think Shields understands yet that she just wrote her name into a chapter she cannot edit out. Cultural evidence piece number 4 is the Atlanta Backlash, which is picking up steam by the day. Mz Shyneka is not some random blogger. She is embedded in the Atlanta radio ecosystem. She is co-hosting a morning show alongside Young Jock, and she has community capital that Shields, as an outsider from Flint by way of everywhere, simply does not have in that city. When Shields called her Miss Piggy and body-shamed her on her own platforms, she did not just start a beef with one host. She activated an entire city's protective instinct around one of its own. And the receipts of that activation are already visible, comment sections turning, ticket buying intent dropping in the replies, local Atlanta influencers subtweeting, and the entire @aliens community. Which is what a lot of Atlanta first people call themselves online, closing ranks. That is what happens when you disrespect somebody's city on the way into their city. Atlanta does not forget either. Atlanta remembers. Now I want to acknowledge a counterargument here, because I promised you nuance and I meant it. Some of Shields supporters will say, and they have said, that she is being held to a different standard because she is a black woman, that a male athlete dating in a legally complicated situation would not get this level of scrutiny, and that hip-hop media has always been rougher on women than on men. And you know what? There is a real thread of truth to that critique in general. But it does not apply here, and here is why. The problem with Shields' situation is not that she is dating. The problem is not even that she is dating a legally married man, as messy as that is. The problem is that she is the one making it a public storyline. Every escalation in this saga, the AI pictures, the hubby language, the radio blow-up, the Helwani sit-down where she brought it up unprompted, has come from her side of the camera. You do not get to complain about the coverage of a story you are personally producing, directing, and starring in every single week. That counterargument dies the moment you look at who is pushing the plot forward, and the answer is Claressa Shields herself. Which brings us, finally, to the part of this video that nobody else is willing to say out loud, and I want everybody who is still watching to lock in right now, because we are shifting gears completely. Everything we have talked about so far, the pregnancy pictures, the radio drama, the Helwani slip, the culture picking Remy, all of that is the entertainment layer. It is what you see on the surface. But there is a business layer running underneath all of this that is going to determine whether Claressa Shields has a career 2 years from now. And nobody in the boxing media is willing to touch it because most of them are not equipped to talk about both sides of the sport culture line. So let's talk about it right here. Angle 1 is the sponsorship exposure. When you are a professional athlete headlining State Farm Arena in one of the top 10 media markets in the country, the money that pays for your walkout, your undercard, your gate promotion, and your post-fight bag does not come from ticket sales. It comes from sponsors. And sponsors, real sponsors, the ones with 9-figure marketing budgets, the Samsungs and Nikes and Coca-Colas, and yes, even the Aloes that Shields has publicly been trying to court, do not sign talent that is a loose cannon 2 weeks before a fight. They sign talent that is boring, disciplined, and predictable in front of a camera. Every AI pregnancy post is a slide deck at a sponsor meeting where somebody in a suit says, "We love the athlete, but we are concerned about the brand exposure." Every Mz Shyneka video is another paragraph in the risk assessment memo. And here is the part that hurts. Shields does not seem to understand that the reason the biggest women's boxers historically have not gotten mega sponsorships is not because sponsors do not like women's boxing. It is because sponsors need calm. She is turning herself into the cautionary tale in real time, and the sponsorship money that was supposed to build the next phase of her career is quietly being reallocated to whoever the next steady, camera-safe fighter turns out to be. That is Angle 1, and it is happening whether anybody in her camp wants to admit it or not. Angle 2 is the promotional ecosystem. Boxing is not the NBA. There is no salary cap. There is no guaranteed contract. Every dollar you make is a dollar you had to individually generate through a promoter, a network, a pay-per-view partner, or a streaming platform. And the way that ecosystem decides who gets the next big check is by watching how you carry yourself in between fights. When you are a promoter, pick any of them, DAZN, Matchroom, PBC, TKO, and you are looking at your slate for 2027, you are not just looking at who wins in the ring. You are looking at who moves units without setting fires. Shields, in the last month alone, has generated more headlines about pregnancy pictures than about her opponent for the fight that is coming in less than 2 weeks. That is a marketing red flag for every promoter in the sport. Because the promoter's calculus is not, is this fighter good? The promoter's calculus is this fighter easy? And easy right now for Shields is very much not the word on the street. That is Angle 2, and if you have ever wondered why women's boxing purses lag so far behind the men's, part of the answer is that too often the biggest stars in women's boxing get pulled into cultural drama that scares off the exact partners who could fund the next tier of the sport. Shields is not helping. Shields is actively making it worse. Angle 3 is the media ecosystem itself, and this is the deepest layer, so stay with me. Hip-hop media and boxing media do not usually overlap. There is a wall between them. But Shields, by dating Papoose, by going on Ariel Helwani and freestyling, by feuding with Atlanta radio hosts, by getting covered by The Shade Room and Hot New Hip Hop and Complex and Baller Alert and Yahoo Entertainment simultaneously, has personally punched a hole in that wall. And every time she does it, she brings hip-hop media's scrutiny standards into a boxing career that was previously insulated from them. That is a huge shift, and I do not think she or her team have grasped it yet. Boxing media will let you get away with a lot as long as you win. Hip-hop media will crucify you for the way you tweet. She has voluntarily walked into the more brutal ecosystem, and now she is complaining that the coverage feels rough. Of course it feels rough. You changed the arena you were fighting in without telling anybody, including yourself. Every one of these 3 angles, sponsorship, promotion, and media, is quietly bleeding value out of Claressa Shields' career while she is busy arguing with a morning show host. And they are not separate problems. They are the same problem wearing 3 different suits, and the suit is called "The Athlete Became the Storyline" instead of the story. Which brings me, finally, to what I actually believe is happening here, and this is the part I want everybody to hear clearly because I have been sitting on this for a couple of weeks, and I think the moment is right to say it. I believe Claressa Shields knows, on some level she may not fully admit to herself, that the boxing part of her career has plateaued. And I do not mean she is not great, she is great. I mean she has already hit the ceiling of what the sport is currently willing to pay her, promote her at, and celebrate her for. She has beaten everyone in her weight class. She has already gotten the greatest of all time plaque from the people willing to give it. And the next tier, the crossover superstardom, the household name money, the Serena Williams comparisons she has publicly chased, is not coming through boxing alone. It has to come through culture. And I believe she has looked at that math and decided, consciously or unconsciously, that being famous for dating Papoose, feuding with Remy Ma by proxy, and staying in the hip-hop news cycle is a faster path to that crossover than winning another undisputed belt. That is the truth bomb. That is the reveal. She is not losing it. She is trading it. She is trading long-term respect for short-term attention because she has done the math and decided attention pays faster. And the reason it is so painful to watch is that the math is wrong. It is completely, provably, catastrophically wrong, and the receipts for how wrong it is are sitting right across from her in the form of Remy Ma, who has spent the last year doing almost nothing publicly on this story and has, in that same year, become more culturally relevant than she has been in a decade. Silence built Remy's 2026. Noise is destroying Claressa's. And if nobody in her camp is telling her that, then everybody in her camp is failing her. Because there is a version of Claressa Shields who wins August 15th at State Farm Arena, delivers a clean post-fight press conference, does not mention Papoose or Remy or Mz Shyneka or AI or Facebook filters or any of it, and walks out of Atlanta with her stock higher than when she walked in. That version is still available to her. But the window is closing, and every day she posts another belly picture the window closes another inch, and by the time the first bell rings on fight night that window might already be shut. That is the actual stakes of the story, and that is the part nobody in the boxing media has been willing to tell you because they are too busy laughing at the memes to see the career being dismantled in front of them. But here is why I am not worried about the culture as a whole, and here is why I want to give everybody watching a little bit of hope at the end of this, because the story is not over and the story does have a hero. Remy Ma is the hero of the story, and I am going to say that as clearly as I can. Not because she is perfect, not because she has never made a mistake in her career, not because she is somehow above criticism. She is not. She is a human being with a complicated life. But in the specific arc of this specific situation, Remy has done everything a person under pressure is supposed to do. She kept her mouth mostly closed when everybody expected her to explode. She let the public form its own conclusions instead of trying to force them. She invested in her craft, showed up at legacy hip-hop moments, sat down with the veterans, and let the work speak louder than the drama. She looks better than she has looked in years. She sounds better than she has sounded in years. She is on stages, on podcasts, on floats, on covers, and she is doing it all without ever having to say a single unkind word about the woman dating her legally still husband. That is what integrity looks like in real time, and hip-hop, which does not always get it right, is getting this one right. The culture picked Remy. The veterans picked Remy. The city picked Remy. Atlanta, of all cities, is quietly picking Remy over an outsider who came in swinging at one of their own. And when you look at the entire timeline of this saga, from the earliest days when everybody assumed Remy was the villain because Papoose was doing the talking, to right now, when Papoose is quiet and Claressa is the one holding the mic and lighting fires with it, you see the same lesson every single time. The person who runs their mouth loses. The person who runs their life wins. One person makes headlines because they cannot help themselves. The other makes plaques because they refuse to be baited. And that contrast, that clean and undeniable contrast, is the reason this story ends the way it is going to end. Remy will still be Remy in 2028. She will still be doing Angie Martinez sit-downs, still be on Drink Champs, still be showing up with Fat Joe and Jadakiss, still be an icon in a city that raised her. And Claressa, unless something in her camp intervenes right now, is going to be the answer to a trivia question about the strangest year in women's boxing history. That does not have to be the ending. She can still write a better one. But the pen is running out of ink, and she is the only one still holding it. And this is only the start of the story, because I need everybody watching to understand that between now and August 15th, and then between August 15th and whatever comes after that fight, there is going to be a lot more to unpack. Two things I am watching specifically, and I want you to watch them with me. First, whether Atlanta shows up for the fight. That is the single most important data point for the next chapter of the Claressa Shields story, because if the arena does not fill, or if it fills, but the crowd energy is against her, that is going to be the moment the sponsors and promoters we talked about in the industry breakdown start moving their money. Watch the walkout reaction. Watch the introductions. Listen for the boos. Second, whether Remy Ma says anything at all about any of this in the next 30 days. My prediction, and I want to be on record with this, is that Remy will stay quiet, will let August 15th happen without a single comment, and will let the culture keep doing the work for her. But if she does speak, if she does one interview, one podcast drop, one strategically timed post, the whole story shifts overnight, and this video becomes the setup for a much bigger one. If Atlanta wants me to cover the Mz Shyneka fallout in full, and I mean full, every clip, every reaction, every ticket sales data point, leave the word Atlanta in the comments, and I will make that video happen. And if you are still here at this point, you are amazing, and you are exactly the kind of viewer this channel is built for. Subscribe if you have not already, because the next video I have queued up is the one I have been holding for weeks, the deep breakdown of the actual legal filings in the Remy Ma and Papoose divorce, the alleged asset dispute, the exact reason this thing has dragged on for almost 2 years, and why the number attached to it changes everything you thought you understood about Papoose's motivations in this entire saga. That video is coming this week. Do not miss it. Because when the paperwork comes out, everything we just talked about, the AI photos, the radio drama, the Helwani slip, all of it is going to look like the warm-up for a much, much bigger reveal. See you there.